Labour are to publish a league table of foreign criminals. A league table of foreign criminals and their offences is set to be published for the first time. The plans, due to be announced on Tuesday, will reportedly focus on those offenders awaiting deportation from the UK. The latest data shows there were 19,244 foreign offenders awaiting deportation at the end of 2024, a rise from 17,907 when the Conservatives left office in July, and 14,640 at the end of 2022. Despite more offenders being deported since Labour came to power, the number waiting to be removed from the UK has been growing. Now, after this announcement, Rupert Lowe, former Reform MP, who has been the most aggressive on immigration, said this on Twitter. The next aim is to get a full nationality breakdown for those claiming universal credit and other benefits. Let's see who is living off the British taxpayer and where they have come from. Some people are never happy, are they? Now let's deal with the false claim. Immigrants are not allowed to claim universal credit. Lowe is lying, but that's the modus operandi of the right wing. But this is the thing. People like Lowe are not happy. They are demanding more. Not fault. Once again, Labour are pandering to reform in the hopes that this will rescue them. I mean, it's not. All it's doing is pushing the Overton window even further to the right.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely bang on. What is happening right now is we have another, small mini election, whatever you want to call it, coming up next week, and Labour really want to cement and appeal to right-wing voters. But here's the thing: even for your average voter within the UK, Keir Starmer is far too flip-floppity. He doesn't seem to actually have a position on anything. So when Reform voters look at Keir Starmer, they don't see someone or the Labour Party that's tackling their concerns such as immigration or universal claimant credits or things like crime that may be committed by foreign nationals in their worldview. What they actually see is Reform rising in power, and this actually gives more power to Farage, because it's like, take a look at what our party is making the Labour Party do. It's making them appeal to us. But they see Keir Starmer as being basically someone that's just trying to fill in the shoes of what a prime minister for them could be. They don't see him as someone authentic. And I think it's particularly dangerous for Labour to try and play this game, because just like the Democrats in America, if you try too hard to appeal to the American right, with Kamala Harris saying things like, I'm going to be no different to Joe Biden and I would gladly take a Republican in my cabinet. I'm going to be even stronger on the border than Trump will be. You're not going to get people to your side because you're already seen as a pansy that stands for nothing. So all this is going to do is alienate, one, whatever voter-based Labour has left, and two, it's just going to drive up the worldview that Reform voters have that, hey, look, Farage and Rupert Lowe are making Labour cave into their demands.
I don't believe that being from a certain nationality makes you have the propensity to commit crimes, right? That's what the right wing believe. But once the league tables are published, I mean, by the way, I don't like that term. This isn't a game, but
it just sounds like a Premier League or something.
It's like a Premier League game,
Yeah.
This is the latest score. It just feels very uncomfortable. But for whatever reason, the league tables do show that, right? They do show that certain nationalities commit more crimes. What do you think the left's response is going to be, or rather should be? And because, these tables are stripped of so much context. It doesn't talk about poverty or over-policing, for example.
Yeah, I think the left's response should really be trying to cement this as a scapegoating thing, because like you said, it's really disgusting to call it a league table, because in reality what it will be is used as a list. It's used as a list to manufacture consent for the Labour Party to not only tackle minorities with certain policy, but also a list for those that are flirting with the ideas that Reform are peddling, and for what scapegoat or what reason do they need to vote Reform in the next election to solve the problem of different nationalities committing crime. It sets a dangerous precedent. I think I lost what I was going to say. Sorry. I think it's particularly disingenuous, especially because last summer we had race riots as well. So this is really going to endanger a lot of people, and it's going to be used as a target on different nationalities' backs. And the left should really try and calculate their moves and say, look, this is a scapegoating issue. You can't look at immigration without taking a look at what different nationalities do. Muslims, for example, of course, are also born here, but also Muslim immigrants that may be coming over that Reform like to target. They donate some of the biggest amounts of charity in the UK. Immigrants, for example, pay into systems and pay into benefits that they themselves can't claim. There's a large percent of the immigrant population that is overrepresented in places like the NHS or health and social care. And so the left's response should really be like, you are not getting the full picture here, and this is nothing but a scapegoat, because if you got rid of all these criminals tomorrow, how would your NHS look like under Farage? Because it would just be privatised.
The Labour Party, once again, are trying to pander to the right. They're doing it. I mean, obviously, when Keir Starmer was asked the question, do you think a trans woman is a woman? He then says, no, they're not, because obviously the Supreme Court ruling, he's following that. When it comes to immigration, yes, I mean, the majority of this country does want to see immigration come down. I disagree with them, but I accept that's the country we're living in. But there's no pushback from the Labour Party to try and change minds. When it comes to the economy, they're saying, yeah, maybe we should give tax breaks to produce growth. When it comes to social economic policies, they've pivoted to the right so easily, and they haven't even bothered to try and give a counter narrative. Now, I think some of those in the Labour Party think, well, better that we don't try and push back and seem too left wing and out of touch, and then we lose the next election, because then the real right wingers will get in and do the bad policies. But in my head, I'm thinking, well, it makes no difference whether it's a right wing party that does bad policies or a so-called progressive party. If they're doing bad policies, it's the same result, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the same result. Like you said, you can't do austerity with a red rosette and then basically say, hey, look, it's for the moral good. But like you alluded to, they're going to fail. No one, absolutely no one, and someone can quote me on this and try and prove me wrong, but in any general election or by-election, especially the one that's coming up next week, no one's going to swing to Labour because they're harder on foreign criminals. They're just not. What Labour needs to do, if they actually want to stay in power for the next election and want their members of parliament to stay where they are, is they genuinely need to fix the real issues, which is things like the cost of living, housing, healthcare, and overall foreign policy, because no one wants to see more money going abroad to fund endless wars. And I'm not talking about security guarantees. I'm talking about literal weapons are being basically funneled endlessly, no matter where they end up. And so Starmer, McSweeney even, I should say, because that's the real head of the operations, is not going to find anyone swinging to Labour because of this. And what's actually going to happen is they're going to leave a very fertile ground for the far right to come up and pick up more votes. And even this should be a challenge to the left, because this is the perfect opportunity for them to swing in, like Die Linke did, for example, in Germany. For anyone that didn't know, that was the party called the Left, and heavily used populist framing, because people are angry and they don't want to hear politicians go on flip-flop on things that will either benefit them in the terms of the worldview or just end up conceding ground to reform.
This is almost like the exact same argument we made in 2015, when we had Ed Miliband offering austerity light. And the Overton window was basically austerity is the thing of the day. Opposing cuts was far too radical. And essentially you have a Tory politician and a Labour politician on Question Time. And a Tory politician will say, we need to cut this department by 10%. And the Labour MP, whoever's representing them at the time, would say, we need to cut them by 5%. And we were always told, right, well, you have to accept the narrative, because if you seem too radical, no one's going to vote for you. You need to be sensible. And the arguments we were making is, people want to vote for the real thing. Right? If people want to vote for an austerity party, one, they're going to vote for the party that's offering more austerity. They're not going to go for austerity light. But two, there's also trust. So when it comes to immigration, for example, there is nothing Labour can do on immigration that's going to make people go, I'm going to vote for you now. Because even if they're more hardline, by the way, in lots of areas, the Labour Party have been more hardline than the Conservatives, but that hasn't changed the narrative because people don't believe them. People say, oh, well, I mean, I've actually heard people say, I don't believe the numbers, right? At the end of the day, the Labour Party are not associated as an anti-immigrant party. They're associated as a pro-migrant party. Now, I don't know, maybe McSweeney thinks, oh, we need to be seen as the anti-migrant party, which I don't think works because all you do is alienate your base anyway. I think people will always associate the Labour Party with being pro-migrant. Therefore, no matter how far they swing to the right on immigration, in the average person's mind, they're going to be like, well, I'm not voting for open borders for Labour. So instead of doing that, I think, and you're right, talk about the real issues, about the material conditions.
100% agree. The last thing I want to add to that is there is obviously a lot of our viewers are already, on the left, but for anyone that's even considering, conceding ground to Labour, I honestly think I have to just say it. Labour are right now permanently changed. I don't think they are going to adopt a progressive policy to help people. I think when you go for the most marginalized people and ignore everything else, whether that's the winter fuel allowance, whether that's poor children, whether that's refugees, migrants, trans people. I mean, Keir Starmer attacked Bengali refugees days before. Bengali refugees.
Was it him and John Ashworth, wasn't it? And that's partly why he lost his seat.
And it's an extremely small percentage of actually refugee claimants, because Bengalis, like Pakistanis or Indians, immigrated here in the 60s or 70s, right? So not a lot of them are refugees. But what you are going to see is, and I need to say it for anyone watching, is there, in my opinion, actually, no. Factually, there's no voting for Labour if you're on the left. They are not going to meet what you need.
Support independent media. Support social justice that's there on social media. Thank you. Turn left.